The first entry was written with discipline. The ink was steady, the lines precise, the tone controlled exactly as one would expect from a captain of a vessel crossing the Atlantic in the year 1732. June 3rd. Departed from the western coast under clear skies. Cargo secured, crew in good order, winds favorable. There was nothing unusual in those words, nothing that would suggest what this ship would become, nothing that would explain why the final entries were written in a different hand, or why the last page was never finished. The ship had no name recorded in surviving fragments. Some accounts claimed it had been deliberately scratched out. Others suggested it was never written at all. Only one detail remained consistent across every version of the story. There was a woman on board, not listed among the cargo, not recorded among the crew, but mentioned repeatedly. June 7th. A disturbance among the lower hold. Crew reports hearing sounds at night scratching along the hull, attributed to shifting cargo. The scratching was described again the following night, and the night after that. Always the same pattern, slow, deliberate, as though something inside the ship was trying to get out. June 10th. The sea has fallen still, no wind for 2 days, sails hang without movement. Water unnaturally calm. Sailors feared calm seas more than storms. A storm could be survived. A storm had reason. But a sea without wind was something else. It meant waiting, and waiting meant listening. That was when they first saw her. Not below deck, not among the others, but standing alone at the bow of the ship, facing the horizon, looking at nothing. June 11th. Crew reports a figure on deck during the night watch. Female, no record of her among the manifests. When approached, she did not respond. She looked only toward the moon. The captain ordered her brought below, but when they reached her, she turned. And for a moment no one moved, because there was nothing outwardly wrong, no deformity, no visible threat, only stillness, and eyes that did not seem to focus on anything in front of her. June 12th. The woman has been confined. She does not speak, does not eat, does not sleep. She watches. The scratching grew louder that night, not random, not scattered, but patterned 3 times, always 3, pause, then again. The same rhythm would continue for hours. June 14th. The crew refuses to go below after dark, claims the sound is no longer coming from the hull but from within the walls themselves. Wood creaks were common on ships, but this was different. This had intention. June 15th. The woman was found standing outside her confinement. Door still locked. No signs of forced entry. No explanation was given. None was possible. She had not escaped. She had simply not been where they left her. June 16th. The sea remained still. No wind, no current. We are not drifting. We are not moving. We are suspended. The captain's handwriting began to change here, less controlled, more pressure on the page, ink pressed deeper into the paper, as if something unseen had begun pressing back. June 17th. Several among the crew report hearing voices from below deck, not cries, not speech, something else. No language was recorded, only the description, low, layered, repeating. June 18th. I ordered the lower hold inspected. The crew refused. That was the first recorded act of disobedience. It would not be the last. June 19th. I went below myself. The entry ended there. The next page began mid-sentence. Not empty. The ink was uneven, blotted, as if written quickly or in the dark. They are not where they were left. No clarification followed, only a single line beneath it. They are standing. The following entry was written in a different hand, less formal, more frantic. June 20th. The captain is not well. He speaks of movement where there is none. Says they watch him when he turns away. The woman was mentioned again. June 21st. She was seen on deck again. No one opened her door. No one admits to it. She stood beneath the mast and looked at the sky. The sea remained still. Unnaturally so, no ripple, no current, as if the water itself had become solid. June 22nd. One of the men attempted to touch her. He claims she turned her head before he reached her, though she had not moved. He refused to speak after that, not out of fear, but because he said there was nothing to say, only that he had understood something he could not explain. June 23rd, the scratching has stopped. That should have brought relief. It did not because something replaced it. Footsteps. Above, below, inside the walls. June 24th, the wind returned for a moment tonight. A pause in the writing, long, uneven. Then she looked at the moon and it stopped. No one questioned this entry because by then nothing felt impossible. June 25th, we are no longer alone on this ship. No elaboration, no explanation, only certainty. The final pages of the logbook were fragmented, some torn, some stained, some written over repeatedly as if the writer had tried to correct something that would not stay corrected. One line appeared several times, in different handwriting, at different angles, as if written by multiple hands. She is not the cause. Another line followed beneath it. She is the door. The last complete entry read, June 26th, we attempted to leave the ship. There was no further context, only a final sentence beneath it. The sea did not accept us. The final page contained only marks, scratches, deep impressions in the paper, not words, not language, just repetition. 3 lines over and over again. The ship was found months later, drifting. Not damaged, not looted, not abandoned in the usual sense. Everything remained in place, except the crew, except the cargo, except the woman. The logbook was discovered in the captain's quarters, the final page torn halfway through, as if the writer had been interrupted, or stopped, or removed. There were no signs of struggle, no bodies, no explanation, only one detail noted by those who first boarded it. The sails were full, but the wind was completely still. Some accounts claim the ship was destroyed, others claim it was taken, but there are records confirmed, scattered, inconsistent that suggest something else, that the ship was seen again, years later, in waters it could not have reached, unchanged, unaged still. And on certain nights when the sea falls silent and the wind disappears without warning, sailors have reported seeing a figure standing at the edge of the water, not moving, not calling, just watching the horizon, waiting, as if listening for something beneath the surface, or for something trying to come through. And if the wind stops suddenly, if the ocean becomes perfectly still, there is one thing sailors are told never to do: never look toward the moon. Because some say that's when she looks back, and when she does, the sea remembers, and the door opens again. The next account did not come from the ship itself. It came years later, from a port registry clerk who never intended to become part of the story. His records were precise, methodical, unremarkable lists of ships arriving, departing, cargo documented, names checked and signed. Routine, predictable, until one entry appeared where none should have been. No ship had docked that morning, no sails had been sighted, no bells had been rung from the harbor watch, and yet there it was, a name, written in ink that had not yet dried. June 3rd, the same date as the first entry of the missing vessel's logbook. The clerk noticed it immediately, not because of the date, but because of the handwriting. It didn't match his own. It didn't match any official record. It was older, sharper, pressed into the page as if written with intent rather than habit. There was no ship name listed, only a single note beneath it. Returned. The clerk checked the docks. Nothing, no ship, no crew, no disturbance in the water. Only the faintest ripple against the wood as if something had recently moved there, but not arrived, not in any normal sense. That night he attempted to remove the entry. He scraped the ink, turned the page, rewrote the line. But by morning it was back, exactly as it had been. June 3rd, returned. The clerk did not report it, not immediately, because something else began to happen. The harbor grew quiet, not empty, not abandoned, but subdued. Voices carried less distance. Waves struck the dock with less force. Even the wind seemed restrained, as if something was holding it back. On the third day he saw her, standing at the far end of the pier, facing the water, still, unmoving. At first he assumed she was a traveler, someone waiting, but she did not shift, did not step, did not turn, even as the hours passed, even as the light changed. She remained exactly where she was, watching. That night the clerk wrote another note beneath the entry. Figure observed, female, no movement. By morning his addition was gone, replaced by something else. She has already been recorded. The handwriting matched the original, older. Intentional, final. The clerk stopped writing after that, not out of fear, but because he understood something he could not explain. The record was not his to control. It never had been. Months later, another report surfaced. This one from a coastal patrol vessel. Routine inspection, clear skies, open water, no expectation of disturbance until they saw it. A ship, far on the horizon, not moving, not drifting, just present. The captain of the patrol vessel noted something immediately. There was wind, strong enough to carry them forward, strong enough to move the waves beneath them, but the distant ship remained still. Its sails were raised, full, yet unmoving, as if the wind had chosen not to touch it. They approached cautiously, calling out, signaling no response, no movement, no sound. As they drew closer, details emerged. Wooden structure, aged but not decayed, ropes intact. Hull undamaged, it should not have been there. Not after so many years, not in that condition, and yet it was. They boarded carefully, weapons drawn, expecting resistance, or bodies, or something, but they found none of those. The ship was empty, but not abandoned. That was the unsettling part. Nothing had been disturbed, everything was placed deliberately, as if waiting. The logbook was discovered again. Same pages, same entries, same final line, but something had changed. There was a new addition at the very end, written in fresh ink. June 3rd, returned. The patrol captain ordered the ship inspected thoroughly, every deck, every compartment, every inch of the hull, no hidden compartments, no stowaways, no explanation, until one of the men called out from below. They found him standing in the lower hold, frozen, not in fear, not in shock, but in recognition. "What is it?" the captain asked. The man did not turn, did not respond immediately. Then slowly, "They're not gone." Silence. The captain stepped forward. "What do you mean?" The man finally turned. His expression was calm, too calm. "They're still here." The captain followed his gaze, but saw nothing. Only empty space, wood, shadows, darkness. "There's nothing there," he said. The man shook his head slightly. "No, not nothing." A pause. "They're just not where you're looking." The captain ordered him back to the deck immediately. The inspection ended. The ship was marked for towing, but when they returned with equipment, it was gone. No wreckage, no drift pattern, no disturbance in the water, just absence, as if it had never been there. The final account came from a sailor who refused to give his name. His statement was brief, fragmented, but consistent with every detail recorded before. He claimed to have seen the ship, not once, but twice, in different locations, different years, always the same, still water, full sails, no wind, and a figure at the edge of the deck, watching the horizon. He made one final statement before leaving port, one that was recorded but never officially acknowledged. "She isn't trapped on the ship." A pause. "They are." No one asked him to clarify, because no one wanted to understand what that meant. And somewhere, far beyond mapped routes, where the sea falls silent without warning, where the wind disappears without reason, the ship is said to still exist. Not drifting, not lost, but waiting, unchanged, unending. And if you ever find yourself on open water and everything becomes still, completely still, listen carefully. Because beneath the silence you may hear it, not waves, not wind, but something else. A slow, deliberate scratching from within the hull, 3 times, always 3. And if you hear it, do not follow it. Do not search for it. And whatever you do, do not look toward the bow, because she will be there, already watching. And the moment you meet her gaze, you won't remember boarding the ship. You won't remember the journey. You won't remember anything at all, except one thing, the feeling that you have always been there, waiting for the wind to stop again. There was one final document. It did not come from a captain, nor a sailor, nor any official record. It came from a man who should not have survived long enough to write it. His account was discovered folded into the lining of an old sea chest recovered decades later. No name was attached, no origin confirmed, but the handwriting matched, not the captain's, not the clerk's, but something in between, controlled at first, then gradually breaking. The document began without date, without introduction, as if the writer assumed the reader already understood where he was. We thought it was the sea. The line was clean, measured. We thought the silence belonged to the water, a pause in the ink. Then it does not. The next lines grew tighter, closer together, as if space itself had become limited. It is not outside the ship. It is not around us. It is within. The writer described the moment everything changed, not when the scratching began, not when the woman appeared, but later, when the crew stopped asking questions. When the fear left us, we knew. That was the line that stood out most, because fear does not simply disappear, not on open water, not in isolation, not in the presence of something unknown, and yet he described it as relief, calm, acceptance. They are not being taken, he wrote. They are being moved, moved where he did not say, or perhaps he could not, because the next sentence was written over several times. The ink layered, corrected, scratched into itself. They are still here. Then again they are still here, and again they are still here. As if repeating it would make it clearer or more real, the document shifted tone after that. Less observation, more realization. We tried to leave the ship. We lowered the boats. We entered the water. A long space followed. Then the water did not receive us. No further explanation. Only a single word written beneath it. Reflected. The next passage was more fragmented, sentences unfinished, thoughts broken. The sea is not depth, it is not distance, it is the line ended abruptly. The following words were written at an angle as if the page had shifted beneath the writer's hand. It is surface. That was the first true contradiction. Everything they knew about the ocean reversed. The writer continued. We saw it from below. That line was underlined deeply, repeated twice, as if we were looking up. The implication settled slowly, not immediately understood, but impossible to ignore. The next lines confirmed it. The ship is not on the water. It is between. The handwriting became erratic now, less controlled, as if the writer was no longer alone, as if something was interfering. The woman the ink dragged across the page. She is not part of it. A pause, longer than before. She is what allows it. The writer described her again, standing at the bow, unmoving, watching the horizon, but now there was something different. She is not looking outward. The words were pressed harder, more certain. She is looking at something that is looking back. That was the moment the document changed completely. No longer a record, no longer an account, but a warning. We thought the scratching was inside the hull. We were wrong. It was coming from the other side. The page had been punctured in several places, not torn, not damaged, but pressed through as if something had pushed against it from beneath. The pattern is not random. 3 is not repetition. It is permission. The final section of the document was the most unstable. Lines crossed, words overwritten, entire sentences begun and abandoned. But one passage remained clear, written slowly, deliberately, as if the writer had forced himself to remain steady. When she looks at the moon, the ink paused, then continued. She aligns it. That word aligns, not stops, not controls, aligns. With what? The writer attempted to answer, but failed or was prevented, because the next line simply read a blank, an absence. The final words of the document were written at the very edge of the page, barely fitting, as if there had been no space left, or no time. If you find this a pause, if you are reading this another pause, do not assume you are on your own ship. The ink smeared slightly, the hand had shaken. For some of us, the sentence nearly broke apart, but continued. For some of us, the crossing never ends. The final line was written smaller than the rest, tighter, contained, as if it had been meant only for the reader. It is not a journey, a breath of space. It is a loop. No further records were found, no official confirmations. No surviving witnesses beyond fragmented accounts that were dismissed, ignored, or quietly archived. But among sailors, among those who spend enough time on open water, there is a story that persists, not told openly, not written down but passed quietly, carefully, as something closer to instruction than myth. They say there are moments rare, unpredictable, when the ocean does something it should never do. It becomes still. Not calm, still. No current, no wind. No sound. In that moment you are not where you think you are. The surface you stand on is not the one you see, and somewhere close, closer than it should be, there is another version of the same space, aligned, waiting. They say if you are unlucky enough to be there when it happens, you will feel it, not as fear, but as recognition, a sense that something has just completed. And if you look toward the bow, you will see her, exactly where she has always been, watching, not you, but the point where both sides meet. And if she turns, if, even for a moment, her gaze shifts toward you, then you will understand what the others did. Too late. That the ship you boarded was not empty, was not abandoned, and was never lost. It was simply waiting for the next crossing, for the next alignment, for the next moment when the wind stops, and the door opens again. There is one detail that never appears in official records. It is never written in logbooks, never spoken in reports. And yet, it is the one detail every surviving account agrees upon. The ship does not appear suddenly, it reveals itself, slowly, as if it had always been there, unnoticed, just beyond recognition. The final testimony came from a navigator, one of the few roles on a ship where certainty is expected. Coordinates, direction, distance, measurable, predictable. He was not a man given to imagination, which is why his account was never published, only archived, quietly, without acknowledgement. He described the moment it began, not with sound, not with sight, but with absence. The instruments did not fail, he wrote. They became irrelevant. The compass needle did not spin, it did not break, it simply stopped pointing, not north, not anywhere. It held in place as if direction itself had ceased to exist. The horizon changed, he continued. Not visually, not at first. A pause in the record. Then it no longer felt distant. That was the first indication, not something seen, something understood. The space between the ship and the horizon had altered, not shortened, not extended, but removed. We were no longer moving toward it, he wrote. We were within it. The crew did not panic immediately because nothing appeared wrong. The sails were still, the water unmoving, the sky clear. It was only when they tried to measure distance that they realized there was none. That was when the ship appeared, not from ahead, not from behind, but from alignment. A faint outline, superimposed over their own vessel, perfectly matched. Mast to mast, deck to deck, hull to hull, not separate, not approaching, already there. We did not see it arrive, the navigator wrote. We noticed that it had always been present. At first it was faint, barely visible, like a reflection that had not yet formed fully, but it grew clearer, not by moving closer but by becoming more real. And as it did, something else became clear. It was not empty. Figures stood along its deck, still, silent, watching, not moving in response, not signaling, just observing. They were not strangers, the navigator wrote. The ink pressed harder here, as if the hand had tightened involuntarily. They were us. Every figure mirrored a member of their own crew, position for position, posture for posture, but not movement because the reflection did not match. It acted independently. That was when she appeared, not on their ship, but on the other one, standing at the bow. Exactly as described in every account before, unmoving, facing forward, looking toward the horizon that no longer existed. She did not look at us, the navigator wrote. She did not need to, because something else was happening. The two ships were not separate. They were aligning, the space between them collapsing, not physically, not in any way that could be measured, but perceptually. Reality itself was adjusting, merging. We attempted to break course, he wrote. We attempted to turn. But turning required direction, and direction no longer existed. There was no left, he wrote, no right, only forward. But forward did not lead anywhere. It led deeper, into alignment. The crew began to react. Some shouted, some prayed, some closed their eyes, but it made no difference because the process was not external, it was internal. "We felt it before we saw it," he wrote. "A shift, not in the ship, in ourselves." The figures on the other vessel began to move, slowly, deliberately, not toward them, but in synchronization, as if preparing, as if anticipating something inevitable. "She turned," the navigator wrote. The first and only time the woman had been recorded doing so. Not fully, not directly, but enough. Her head shifted slightly, just enough to change the angle of her gaze, and in that moment everything stopped. Not the sea, not the ship. Everything. Time did not pause, it ceased. There was no before, he wrote, no after, only that moment. And within it understanding, not spoken, not explained, but known, instantly, completely. "They are not separate," he wrote. "We are not separate." The realization did not bring panic, it brought clarity, the kind that removes fear entirely, because fear requires uncertainty, and there was none left, only truth. "We are not crossing the ocean," he wrote. "The ocean is crossing us." The final section of his account was written with perfect calm, no shaking, no hesitation, as if the writer had accepted what was happening, as if resistance had become irrelevant. "The ship is not a vessel," he wrote. "It is a point, a place where it happens." The handwriting remained steady to the very end. "We are not being taken. We are being continued." The last line was written smaller, more precise, as if meant to be final. "There is no disappearance." A pause, then only replacement. The navigator's body was never recovered. His ship was found days later, drifting, unmanned, no signs of struggle, no damage, no explanation. Only one detail noted by those who boarded it. The sails were full, but the wind was completely still. And now, among those who know the stories, those who have spent enough time on open water, there is one final warning. Not written, not recorded, but remembered. If the sea ever becomes perfectly still, if the wind disappears without warning, if the horizon feels closer than it should be, do not look for another ship. Do not search the water. Do not call out, because it is already there, aligned, waiting. And if by chance you feel something shift not around you but within you, then you are already part of it, already crossing, already becoming. And somewhere at the edge of that impossible horizon, she will be there, exactly as she has always been, watching, not for you, but for the moment when you finally understand that you were never passing through the ocean. You were passing through it, and it has been waiting, since the first crossing, to begin again. If you're enjoying this journey into the mysteries, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us uncover more hidden secrets, haunted stories, and thrilling tales just like this one. Don't miss what's coming next. Subscribe now and turn on notifications.